lakan yadayami. Oh yeah, that tajungi shidam dene shargana. Lodan sama tsumyetang se degi ani zundang sama ani tsuzum aja sergana ani da ngage namba shi se de dengare wa lodan sama tsumyetang manje bayan yanda dom ode kanre sera loba sena loba medaba dushi junha mawa 진지 도시에 진지 도시에 현주의 측되는 넘버 코와오 저기 잡아놔라 진지 측되는 도시 현주의 세간한 도시 인바다 마인바다 여바다 매바 나서와 다 미식이 통하다 마동아 암지 연예식 코와라 마고라 서와가 진지 도시 지제비 측되는 넘버 코와오 엄마주 메나 이시 남시당 세미기당 숨이 냠순 용가시 세미바당 나와당 오 딘디거다 통화당 통화라 마동세라 퇴화라 마데세라 어디가라 딘디시그바리 디기 로바 미다바 두시주네 마와당 세거라 진세.
So the next non-virtuous action that one is to restrain oneself from, to abstain from, is called falsehood. Is the fourth of the fourth of the 10 that we're covering here, and the first of the 4 that pertain to speech. So here, falsehood or lying, another way of saying the same thing, is defined as saying something which is designed to change someone else's ideas so that they're untrue. That is, to cause someone else to believe in something which is untrue. This is explained in more detail in the basic text on the of Abhidharma, the treasury of Abhidharma, and in that text it's explained that same way that lying or falsehood is where you try to convince someone verbally that something that is the case is not the case, or something that is not the case is the case. You're trying to convince them that a situation is not as it actually is, and one does that through you can do that in various ways, making various sorts of false claims. Like you can say that I saw something when you didn't actually see it, or I heard something when you did not actually hear it. Or you can also reverse that and say that I did not see something or I did not hear something when in fact you did hear it or you did see it. So in all of these are various different ways in which one can misrepresent the actual situation of things so as to cause someone else to develop some misunderstanding of the way things are in any way, or to cause them to lose their correct understanding of things and to develop some misunderstanding of the way things are. So all of those are cases of falsehood or lying. So this just as in the previous cases where we were talking about the physical actions that one performs, non-virtuous physical actions of killing, stealing, and sexual misconduct or adultery. Here too, in the case of lying, if you say something that causes someone else to misunderstand the way things are, to either to think something is the case when it is not, or to think that something is not the case when it actually is the case, then and you sort of do that deliberately, and you induce the other person to develop that misunderstanding of things, so that their mind, their ideas change from away from the way things actually are towards into the direction of things, misunderstanding of the way things are. Then that is, and you complete the action such that the person's ideas actually change, then that is the path of, the karmic path of lying or falsehood.
Oh yeah, then that teacher la,准trauma se trauma si gana, yenji, 早一晚的切比先，早，俺那早的切把切比，yenji先切比，吃嘛哇，trauma汤是哦，刚才trauma跑着夜月间，你梦见起什么吃？俺那跑着不牛的，早一晚的切比切住，俺那你梦见起什么滚来浪的。俺那吃嘛的，怕着被太阳烤完的茶嘛钱，我天着我的帮位出这么的了，茶嘛帮位，俺给出这么，啊。
So here, the next action of speech, which is non-virtuous, which is to be abandoned or abstained from, is divisive speech. Here, the speech is where you, motivated by one of the mental afflictions, any one of the mental afflictions, you say something which is deliberately designed to cause others for disharmony to develop between other people. So, for example, if there are two friends and you say something which is designed to cause their friendship to deteriorate or for them to lose it, and you do that motivated by anger or hate, desire or ignorance, or any of the other mental afflictions, then and when you complete that action such that the other people have heard what you've said and it's caused dissension among them, then loss of friendship or what have you, then that action of speech is what is defined here as divisive or divisive speech, and it's the second of the actions of speech which are to be abandoned.
Oh yeah, that is chizubu said, and it shangy shake be chilies regana, similar nobody, and it's lambo, mawa, chizubu. I said, 出去把你明年吧，这个那个是出去把你明年吧，是干啦？吃住不？俺那现在什么那把给吃浪不？俺吃住不嘛话的，俺那跑着被太阳烤完了，俺那来趟我去找我去，然后就。
So here, with the previous one, or the one that was just mentioned, I want to clarify that if the other person that you're attempting to create divisiveness within understands your words, then that action has been accomplished, and the karmic action of divisive speech has, you performed it. So that's to be abandoned in that way. So then the next one is harsh speech. What is that? Harsh words is the way it's translated here. Here, this is also explained in the Abhidharma Kosha in more detail, and here's a summation of that, where it says that if you use rough kinds of language, which is designed to hurt the feelings of another, then that's what's defined as harsh words here, harsh speech. And likewise with that, whenever if you are motivated with one of the mental afflictions, say something which is rough kinds of words which you know will offend the other person and cause their feelings to be hurt, then that's what's defined here as harsh words or harsh speech. And that, as well as if the person to whom the speech is addressed hears your words and understands them, and then that is the action, the karmic path of harsh words.
Oh yeah, that is la ngaja imbari. Rawa mandrewa chunja do mavi, rawa kan meba chunja do mavi, ngaja wa yanda ba domba si gana. Kase, nimo chuchu ba ni minyan ba, nimo jengui jawa ni, jeni gana, da di gana, nimo jengui jawa ni se zoga ne gana, nimo jengi simju kuna lang de chunja do mawa. Ani oh 天大月大灭长全家都冒啊！俺那路上看了说话就这样，俺那上把县面呢，俺那俺家了做过要一百的，是吧？我路了，给他上把了说话，天天给看面呢，俺家做过一百的。这一张，你们监管叫我你，这一看了，他这个俺家当吃住帮我去，他只有帮我，他妈帮我，吃住帮我，俺家帮我的，俺给那把戏。 这个来了描述做吧，原来现场给王都讲的，你我原来现场我得了，但我写的钱，是吧？我这方面得了，你但люди来什么，我给那把写帮我得了，另外给来顿帮我给，俺帮我得了样，帮我顿起，出这么些，是算有的。
So then the next action of speech, there's 4 here, and the fourth one is careless or senseless kinds of speech. What is its translation? Sorry, idle talk is the way it's translated here. This refers to sort of speaking just carelessly or idly. About things which have no meaning, no purpose, no special value, telling stories that have no benefit, this kind of carelessness in one's speech, where one's sort of idly chattering or kind of carelessly, mindlessly speaking about things and telling stories and so forth, which don't have no benefit to them. This is the 7th of the 10 non-virtuous actions which are to be abandoned or abstained from. And here, so these 4 comprise the 4 types of actions that relate to that are verbal in nature, verbal activity. And one should restrain oneself from those kinds of actions. So one can speak of a kind of form of ethical discipline, which is focused upon the 3 physical actions and the 4 verbal actions, and restraining oneself from those physical and verbal actions. Is a basic level or type of ethical discipline that one can engage in. And so in the text here, it's then saying that one should avoid and turn away from these non-virtuous paths, karmic paths of verbal and physical non-virtuous action.
你这大话用帮我谁干了？恰当些呗，那什么？那是没把谁干了？那什么？你这大话用帮我谁干了？老把大话用把的，是吧？我得到来了，我觉得，得到来了，我觉得是我来了，我不给外了，做的嘞是。太难多把的，俺们没看到些把的，太难多把的，俺们没给外来做的。 So
then this verse conclude, or in the 9th verse, then it continues on to discuss, to present the 3 non-virtuous mental actions, and so here it says abandoning, to read the whole verse. Abandoning miserliness, or one could translate that perhaps as covetousness, abandoning maliciousness and nihilistic views, These are the 10 bright paths of action. The 10 dark ones are the opposite. So the 3 that are listed initially in the beginning of that verse are the 3 mental non-virtuous actions of actually covetousness and maliciousness and nihilism. And then the opposites of those are, and those together, those are negative forms of karma. And then the abandonment of those, or abstention from covetousness, maliciousness, and nihilistic views, nihilism, are virtuous paths of action. And so collectively, the process of abstaining from or avoiding the negative or paths of action is in itself the 10 bright, what's called the 10 bright paths of action, 10 positive kinds of karma. And then the 10 dark paths of action refer, of course, to the 10 negative or non-virtuous actions that have been listed above.
Yeah. 다 대자와의 전에 다 차당 세배 아니 다 납심된 거 말이 현진에 봐 다게 돈나 지메롱 냠바 차바당 세가나 로베 현진 놀라차 저기 가서 로바기 아니 현지 다도 수위 예바 아니 어디 예바라 소와라 차와라 로베 현진 놀라 차바라 납셈 전에 저기 나는 수만 나신 전에 현진 예바 다게 돈나 지마롱 냠바기 차바데라 아니 납셈 제
So this first of these, called covetousness, refers to a special kind of desire or lust, you could even say, which particularly refers to a kind of lusting after the things that belong to another. So if here in the commentary it says that if you have the thought, kind of desire or lust or craving, which thinks how nice it would be if I obtained this property that belongs to another. So that mind or attitude of thinking how good it would be if I got someone else's property is what's being defined here, or is the definition really of covetousness, coveting the possessions or whatever belongs to someone else.
Oh yeah, 아니 다 뇌심데 현라 그냥 나심비 뇌심당 그냥 나심바 제 타진 야가 쉬워이바 지당 그냥 나심바 세라 나심바 그 셈들라 고치샤요아레 타진 쉬워이바 달라 내바 채소 아니 채도 채바주로 다그 자월라 내바 채소 채도 채바주로 다그 달라 팬다소 아니 팬 다바 다고 자치 팬다바 채도 아니 채바주로 세가라 그냥 나심베 시고 전에 지단도 송거아레 인상 그냥 나심비 아니 가서래 시야라 내바 채바데라 아 내심데라 아니 저기 내가서 내심 셈잔 라당와 세데 내심데 아니 셈잔라 내밤 셈잔라 셰당와데라 아니 얘기래가 나네 내심체 대봉와데 내심봉와기 일래데 그벨래데 체 다야게 다준디 나심봉와데 나심봉비 아니 일래데 체
So here, these last 3 in the list of 10 are all mental activities, mental karmas, and so the 9th here is a malice or a malicious attitude, and this refers to specifically to an attitude of being completely angry or having a malicious attitude towards some other being or person, and having the sort of wish to harm them that's driven by or motivated by that attitude of malice towards the other person. or other living being. So here there are sort of 9 ways you can think about this. Is that or multiple ways of thinking about this. You can think that this other person or this other being has harmed me in the past. They're harming me in the present. They're going to harm me again in the future. Or you can think that they are harming a friend of yours or your companion or something in the past, in the present, in the future. Or they've done some damage or harm to my property or things that I possess in the past, present, or future. So in all of these various ways, if one thinks considers the other person or being to have harmed you in any of these different ways, then and you have that develop some kind of anger towards them, and that anger induces you to wish or to think that you're going to do harm to that other person that you consider to be an enemy to yourself. Then it's that attitude of malice, wishing to do harm to the other person, is itself the characteristic of malice here.
Oh yeah, that's it. Lendela kuwa debi meba tawa meba niji tawa niji suanashi. Ane kaso keda mela mega zoge kaso keda me tawa so kewada mikewa meba tawa. Oh, meba tawa yin suanashi cheni tilayang ta meba kareta go sana kewele chitewu meba tawa mikewele chitewu meba tawa. 그다 미게 메타와 로바타와니 소아나시체니 어 텐라와데 메바타와데 아니 이기 미게 왔음 납심 내심 로타심 이기 미게 왔음 숨당 제와 용서 법이 아니 레람디 디다래 아니 레람 까비 레람 주 스타 뽕외게 레람데라 까보 까비 레람 주 대기 강한 뽕지 안 도죠 대 나비 레람 주대 미게비 레람 아도세 도반에 나보이노.
So then the last of the 10 here is called nihilism, and this refers specifically to a wrong view, and one that in this here is specifically the wrong view or the nihilistic view that virtue does not produce happiness, that or on the other way looking at it, or on the contrary, that non-virtue does not produce suffering. If you hold that view, view that one's ethical actions, virtuous and non-virtuous actions, don't have any effects in the sense of producing happiness or suffering in the future, then you're holding this type of nihilistic view, which is one of the forms of wrong view. And so here it says that the nihilistic view here is the one which disparages karma and its results. So this is one of the 3 kinds of mental actions, mental karmas that are non-virtuous in nature. So these 3 together with the preceding 7 in total make 10 altogether. And then on the one hand you have the non-virtuous actions themselves, and then the abandonment of these non-virtuous actions, or avoidance of non-virtuous actions, like of these 10, or abstention from them, together is itself the bright path of action, or positive path of karma. And so the text here then says that the karmic path, which is the total abandonment of the 10 non-virtuous actions, is itself the tenfold bright or positive path of karmic behavior, and the contrary then is the dark path of action.
Oh yeah, that taking couple gewe lalam chu, 나보 메게 외라란 주. 다 나보 메게 외라란 주 되게 시당 삼반 조와 타도 저기 남샤다. 아니 개위 량람 주고의 냥수连수 다 지우 충을 가서 라브는 게 나가서 아니 가서를 다른 최종 건 남서 사와 여행자 대래 상반제 그 와인 말 제를 못 제가 로산트라비 빠치 상안에 제비 8월의 신비 특별 집에 남지를 말라 셰와 차오 세가라 시삼바 조와 타도를 레레 신도 다 다중 협조로 자여만도 싸워 주면인자 다 된다라 마 시제 아니 셰와 지고에
So here, in this context, we've given simply a kind of general overview of how this all works in detail. That is, each of these 10 kinds of non-virtuous actions, and as well as the virtuous parts of counterparts of them, have what is called a basis, an intention, the application or engagement in the action, and then the completion of the action. So these four sort of portions of the action, as well as other details, and the thorough presentation of all of this, and in terms of the non-virtues, and as well as the way in which one should practice the 10 virtuous paths of karma, is extensively explained in the stages of the path, which was composed by the master Je Tsongkhapa Losangdrapa Pel. Je Tsongkhapa himself composed an extensive explanation of how karma works in the Lamrim stages of the path text, in both the shorter or intermediate Lamrim as well as the great stages of the path text. And so one should understand these details and the more complete presentation of the different ways in which virtuous and non-virtuous karma are completed as paths, karmic paths from that source.
Oh yeah, that yeah, Garland do be church some share about there. Ani mege wa ju la do ba de chin chani. Da kana ma do wa xian lan do ba de la. Ani kare sana o ju de ma sa ani da ban ja xian ba kare wa re sana cham mi tu da cho wa sa nam ba mi na mi che dang se o da cham mi do wa dang o ka so re lo zong a bang wa ge ani cho wa sa bo o 아니 남바트 미세바 세팅게 나 태양 아니 가서 내와 탐자지 중에 리서라와 매바 체바기 아니 참 미동아 제체 와 아니 침반 남라 초와상 제들 침반 남기 아니 태다 상라 소와 상라 소위 차와라 아니 요주 방와 대체 라도 좀이라 아니 로송아 바비 초 삼부 댐바 어 대체가 대이 지도창 아니 룡아게 토참바 대신 시와나신 셈샤라 넘버 7와 어 넘버 7와 대체가 아숨 투신 바리 숨 참미 투다 초와상 남이 체당
괜히 토참바스나 가리스. So then those were the 10 non-virtuous actions, and then the abstention from the 10 non-virtuous actions is itself the 10 forms of virtuous action as they're been enumerated above. And then there, one might ask, well, is that all there is? Is that it for this dharma that's being explained in this context? The answer is no. There are other kinds of misconduct that one ought to turn away from. And they're given in the next verse. 3 of these are provided in the verse 10. It says, not drinking alcohol, maintaining a proper occupation, and abandoning harm, to list the first 3 here. here it says one should not drink alcohol and maintain a good a type of livelihood and not engage in harm to others. So to go through these individually, as far as alcohol, one should not drink alcohol because it causes one to lose control over one's body and one's mind. That is, by drinking it, it makes one's mind unclear and sort of stupefies it. And then likewise, because of that, then one engages in all kinds of other negative sorts of actions. And so therefore it's to be avoided. Then the next one is, there are different ways of explaining this, having a good form of livelihood, whether one is talking about lay persons or monastics. With respect to lay people, they should avoid deceit in business, so that, for example, if one is dealing with things that require measurement, like weights and measures, one shouldn't do any kind of cheating somebody else by means of faulty forms of measurement, weights and measures, just as an example. One should give up that. Then if for those who are monastics, it says that they should have their proper means of livelihood entails the abandonment or abstention from 5 sorts of faulty types of means of livelihood. And then turning to the avoidance of harm to others. This is referring to other types of harm short of killing someone, such as harming someone else by means of physically or verbally. And so, for example, you shouldn't harm others by beating them with sticks, things of that nature. And so that's just an example of other relatively minor forms of harming other beings. And these 3 together, these 3 dharmas or actions of the avoidance of alcohol, having a good livelihood, and avoidance of harm are 3 dharmas that are added to the previous list that we've gone through.
Oh yeah, that didn't matter. 얘가 참가자에게 rab도 중화라, 로송아 시카라. 아니 로송아 하나 추지 카사 쇼롱 톱지자와 예배 초와 전에 당아 주시와 다들 장갈 방지 정도와 인자 추지 해야돼. 아니 예배 전도년에 예배 근원에 라한데 아니 현지 라라 아니 인구 전에 지마롱 냠도 아니 인구 되네 아니 어디 된도 링하기 아니 군시 레바를 쳐봐.
So then here the commentary explains the 5 sorts of faulty ways of obtaining one's livelihood for monastics. We mentioned the 5 previously, and here in the commentary it enumerates all 5 of them. And so just to list them, there's hypocrisy, flattery, doing something with an ulterior motive, pretense, and misrepresenting your property in order to get more, the 5 just as a list. And the first of these, hypocrisy, is where because you wish to get something, some kind of property or something from somebody else, you're motivated by that desire for some wealth, some property. And then you have the idea that how nice it would be if others would respect and would give things to me or would serve me and take care of me in that way, and then you think I'm going to induce them to do that, And with that sort of thought in mind, thinking that, I'm going to get these other people to give me what I want, then you, in front of them, as sort of like in a hypocritical way, you behave in a very proper sort of fashion, or you control your way of conducting yourself in a nice way, but with that motivation of trying to get something out of the other people.
Oh yeah, that casa said they want to share banana. You be tendo, and a good land. And a jindala sawagi, and a dundo yoni, and a rana nearby Jewish chedo, and a casore, what the bala sawa, and a chinyambo, and a jabatella.
So then flattery, the second of these is flattery, and this has basically the same motivation involved, where a person wishes to get something from somebody. Here we're talking about monastics, wishing to get some kind of wealth or some service or something like that from, for example, a benefactor. And they go in front of them with the attitude that, I want to get something out of my benefactor. And so doing with that motivation, then if one flatters the benefactor by saying, oh, how nice you are, or how you use some special kind of pleasant speech to flatter them, then that's an instance of this.
Oh, yeah. Tani sholong sewani, ani kasore, nieba toba dene, ani cherangile, ani longamala ngala dida would tebate, ani pantowa chung, se nieba pantowa chung, se teniba, or tenegi, ani made, ani tendo, ani rala nieba tebatella, sholong cigar, that did to the rest too much.
They don't do lechetan. They don't do leching. Keki fungse ditzeso.
Never to turn a chimaron, Yambakran, never toba mano, not cheranging, ala did what you got so, and never did and do what they did. Ting ala pant over George.
So then here the third of these is having sort of an ulterior motive in speaking to the other person. So in this case, you're saying to, for example, if you're a monastic and you say to the benefactor, oh, last year you gave me this and it was so nice and it was so helpful to me. It was so, I really benefited so much from that. And you're doing that within underlying motivation of hoping that they'll do it again, they'll give it to you again, or you'll get that same kind of benefit from them. Then that's a case of here, this ulterior motive.
Oh, that then I should top Jawani, Yabala Sembe Sambe, Shannon Digaji, Chuji, and Pada Malasoala, Jimbachawa, Sushila Jimbachawa is. Chuji Kimdo, Rajamba Shushin. Senji Tamawa Chua, and Chuani, Chinyabatan Dano, Tenechana, Cheranyabata Dangres, Parobotini Rajamba, Yamdo, Chimaru, Yamdo, Meve, or the top Java, and that never top Java.
So here the next one is pretense. Here, as a monastic, if you go in front of, say, a benefactor, again, to use that example, and you think with that wish, out of some desire to get some property or offering from the benefactor, and you say to them, oh, you've been so nice, you've been so nice in giving to your parents this sort of thing. And, your parents are, of course, worthy of that kind of respect. But what would you think if an arhat came into your house, was in your house, and, what would you think of that? And you're doing that with sort of the implication, you're trying to induce into that other person, the benefactor, the idea that you yourself are an arhat when you're not. And then you're getting that, you're inducing them to think of you in that having that high status so as to get that wealth.
Oh, yeah, that never saw one. Dala Jawola, Jawoso Kajik, Hungsi, Chimba Malaso, Dini, 打了家我是个金把我写马行，你金把钱有钱把都怕把我样子，什么金马容样子买外是，他看见你把错话是一个了，怕你把穷就怕骗你，你连的了，让了你把钱不去把对方得了，你把错话，
那你
把错话，
打了脚不属于，可是。
对了，就是说，打了叫我了说话，看这个红色金把马上说，你打了叫我切个把是个金把我是，你先马行是他全大洲的看着人上了怕你把去批完，开了喇叭给，你让了你把钱不记得吧？那你把错吧。
So then the last of these is sort of misrepresenting your property so as to get more. And the text here says that if you say that you've gotten, say, a bowl, begging bowl as a monastic, but and it wasn't actually, you didn't receive it from a king, but in order to sort of get someone else to give you some nice things, you misrepresent what you've gotten as if you'd received it from a king or some sort of eminent person like that. And then by misrepresenting it in that way, you get the other person to think that you're like a special sort of person that ought to receive very fine offerings in that way. Or there are other ways of reading this or interpreting this in which you in any case, use something that you've received as sort of a means to induce the other person to give you some fine things. And that's the fifth of these five.
Oh, yeah, that kind of madovation and dobatella sumi benane, or that take charm me don't watang, choa san watang, or jeje. Number 7话前number 7话前送给男人초와 상화 되라 아니 침발라 퇴사 상라 요주 방화다 라도 신화라 로송아 방화 이 베나 다 로송아 방화 제 두치바체.
So in brief, I mean there's these three different types of misconduct that one should turn away from. Drinking alcohol, false sorts, wrong kinds of livelihood and harm. Then with respect, they're to be avoided by both lay people and monastics, clearly. But then with respect to the wrong forms of livelihood, there's some variation in them, whether one is a lay person, householder engaged in business and so forth, or if you're a monastic. And for the monastics, then there's this specification of these five sorts of improper means of achieving one's livelihood.
Oh yeah, that 도비 최 죽음대 칭찬이 다 주비 최 숨보 대라 아니 귀진당 최당 참바대에서 어디 다 뒤임버리 최당 참바대에서 아니 귀에 진바다 어디 귀에 진바당 최벌 여와당 아니 참바 참바대 나지 거진당 세대다 진바체비 유남라 아니 랑게 진바침바 치체나 아니 랑게 라따르데 아니 부와라 소와데 아니 귀해 진바체 라 최여당 세 캄보당 파마라당 상 연대지 신라 소와기 아니 처바여와 대다라 처바지체 라 처바니요 최처바 세대요. 대달라 처바니 최처바 세대체.前辈 처바대 아니 참바 체매, 인제 체매, 단념 체매, 가와 체매대. 아니 체매 시공바. 그와 어디 가라 가서 현매 삼바 참바대. 현라 편바대 바대 참바. 인제 현지 동안전 현 동안라 차원 되바대 인제 인제 현지 동안에 현대 첨바 가와대 현대외 첨바대 가와 첨바 가와 첨에 섬제 현념 당념소 섬제 현라 아니 차당 매바 차당다 저데 10년바 주바데 단용 참매 제외 간라 오다 참바데 시간에 참배 참배게 아니 참매 시디 순과래 참매시고
So these, what we've covered so far, these 13 are called the dharmas that are to be turned away from, that is, these negative forms of action. And by turning away from those negative forms of action, abstaining from them, avoiding them, then that action of avoidance of them is itself virtuous, and so these are basically 13 types of virtuous karma, virtuous paths of karma. Then, excuse me. In addition to those, so those are called the 13 dharmas that are to be avoided. Then there's 3 more dharmas, practices that are to be engaged in. And these are listed as respectful generosity, or I'll go back to the translation here. Where is it? This is the second half of verse 10. Being respectfully generous, honoring the worthy, and cultivating love. So that's the last 3. Respectful offering means for those who are worthy of receiving offerings, one should offer things in a respectful fashion. And there's various ways in which this is explained. For example, giving something to someone who is worthy of that gift with your own hand, doing it in the proper fashion. And here, the persons who are worthy of offering would be, in terms of, would be like abbots or teachers, masters, and then other kinds of sentient beings in general. And then, so doing so in a respectful fashion is the first of these. And then paying honor to those who are worthy is the second of these last 3 dharmas that we're discussing. And here, those who are worthy of honor and worship would be those other persons who are superior in qualities to oneself. For example, one's own ordaining abbot would be someone who is superior to oneself in qualities, and therefore is worthy of that kind of honor and worship. And then the last of these is development of love, or one could say friendliness here, meaning the wish that others have happiness is what is defined as love or friendliness. And here love indicates all 4 of the measureless attitudes, which is love, compassion, I'm forgetting them. Love, compassion, equanimity. What's the other one? Joy. Yeah, and rejoicing in the well-being of others. So love is defined as, again, the attitude in which you wish that others have happiness, that sort of friendly attitude towards other living beings. Compassion is defined as the wish that they be free from any kind of all forms of suffering. And then equanimity here refers to the wish that all sentient beings be free from desire and hatred, or all forms of mentally afflicted attraction and aversion, and enter into a state of equanimity, which is free from these mentally afflicted forms of attraction and aversion. And then the last of these is joy, or sympathetic rejoicing in the happiness and well-being of other beings. And so they're limitless because you project those onto all sentient beings equally. And so these last 3 respectful giving, worship or honor to those who are worthy of it, and love, as representing the four, are the three dharmas that one should engage in.
Oh yeah, 다 남미 체단 귀진당 세기 귀에 짐벌 채와 대라양 랑그 유나마 아니 랑그 라그 부와라서 귀에 짐벌 대라양 짐바 야 아니 짐바 남바 시에 베나네 아니 최그 짐바다 산생그 짐바다 아니 미지바 잡지 짐바 세가라 아니 오체체 잡아라서 쏙 잡아라서 와 대다 다 참비 짐바데 참시 나라 저거야 다 대인장我确实上升的没去比几把那说看进去的了上升个几把确实几把去实几把眼界几把对吧啊你上升我看几把人家没几把几把吃到当把了说吧我几把那么什么都写
So then, with respect to this, the first of these three that are listed at the in this verse, there's some detail here on the respectful giving. This sort of generosity or giving is understood in multiple ways. You can give the gift of the dharma to other beings. You can give them material things, whatever requisites whatever they require, material things, and then you can also give them protection from fear. Protection from fear here refers especially to protecting other beings, other persons or beings that are in danger of losing their lives or that are subject to being harmed. If you protect others in that way, then that's a type of generosity as well, called the giving freedom from fear.
Oh yeah, that didn't 도나 춘이 대인호 세가라 안에 단 두바텔라 와 온디 체 주주보 샤바샤바기 안에 두바텔라 안에 도나 춘이 대인호 세가라 도르드나 안에 온디 규 최대 온도 사다 미 광반 토벌집이 규 춘이 콘도 샤바기 아니 가서래 도바 죽숨당 아니 So
then the last line of the verse here says, in brief, that is the Dharma. So here, this is referring specifically to the Dharma which enables one to achieve high status within the world. And as it's been enumerated above, that this Dharma consists of these 16 practices. That is the 13 that are to be avoided, and the 3 that are to be practiced or engaged in. And so this last line in the Tibetan, I think it's the first line in the last verse of the English, is a summary saying that these 16 practices summarize the dharma that is to be engaged in for one who wishes to achieve high status, a good life.
Oh yeah, that la, ane karsore, nabasanje wale shenba la, kondo shenba ki ane che jurubo te meba temba, o meba temba. Telaya ane lam koar shibe rangshan la neba. Koar rovi kansa, koar shibe nyemi chani ta, du siebe nane, tambo ta lam koar shibe rangshan la neba sede, ta ma yuan che.
So then following this is an explanation of how it is that if one is outside of this dharma that has been taught here, this dharma, that people who practice other types of dharma that doesn't accord with this, that they don't have these practices, and that they lead one astray. They lead one into deviate from the true path. And by deviating from the true path, one brings about harm to both oneself and to others. That's explained in the verses that follow here.
Oh yeah, lam kowa shuba rangsha le batela. Anita se jobadang. Lula menga tamba la sowa, lu duwa la sowa ki ani teda ani chiro wa gashi lam do deba yenzang. Teda lam do deba minam shena. Ani ta tegi teda lam do deba minba lam kowa yinba tenda lu du cheba bashi le cheme teda teyi ni. Shela neba pomme jin shela pendwa yoba min.
So the first subject here is that showing that how it is that by engaging in this sort of paths that deviate from the true path, that it causes harm to oneself and others. Here, this is referring also to that there are different kinds of practices that one finds in other traditions that that deviate from the path that we've described above. And here someone might hypothetically ask, well, isn't it the case that people who practice asceticism, that they, by means of mortifying their bodies, that is physically engaging in extreme physical austerities and so forth, don't they also have a path? Isn't it the case that they are also have a path? And so here the master Nagarjuna says that shows that that's not the case. And here in verse 11 he says, Dharma does not come about merely through engaging in physical austerities. Through that type of practice, one neither ceases harming others, nor does one benefit them. Where it says physical austerities in the translation here, it actually, you could read this as like extreme mortification of the body, extreme asceticism.
Oh yeah, you don't chaba tele, karere sare, ane rangi say cheba, ane lula menga temba, la sawaki, lu dunga cheba, bashi le, ane taba mitoba mase, ane tendravi che tela, taba mitoba mase, ondo sami kwambanta waki che jame. Dini, ane kasora, tendravi rangi say cheba da, menga temba la sawa yin, dini, shen la neba pawaya me. Are rangla pen towaya, yeba mayila, ane running under drowaki, ane ju. Or Gula Shubare said, what a tigi, Shime Teta Tini, Shella Nepa Pomechi, Shella Pendo and Yamain, staying by it. I was.
So then here some examples of extreme asceticism, which entails the mortification of one's own body, harming one's own body through extreme practices. That these are not the true path. They're a deviating sort of path. Here it says that the giving up food, like extreme fasting, sitting in, here it's called the 5 fires, where one builds fires in the 4 directions and then has the sun overhead. These kinds of extreme, these ascetic practices, which all they do is serve is to harm one's own body, to oppress one's own body. And it's not only the case that they do not provide one with liberation, but they also are not the dharma which enables one to achieve high status within a subsequent life. And this is the case because these kinds of practices, they're not the abandonment of harming other beings, this kind of asceticism, and it's also not, these kinds of practices are not beneficial to others. And not only that, it's the case that these kinds of practices cause one to enter into, basically they induce you to engage in practices that cause you to be reborn into the lower states of existence. So they're not only not beneficial to others, they don't help others in any way whatsoever, and they cause oneself to fall into lower states of existence.
Oh, yeah. 다 되게 남 코와 시에티체와 남 코와 슈바데 남 라시안 라바 시에체 다남 코는 로비 칸사데 왜 송아데라 진다 주점 서사와 탐제 람보 체라칸 마그 리돈 나람디 람고 타네 조와데 어디 진다 주점 서사와 세가라 진바다 주점탕 아니 쇠바 싸와 세가나다 저발라 동아 단지 저바 철랑 것은 내제를 심면에 비서바 선보지 말이 쇠바 최사와 진바 숨당 진바다 주름다 쇠바 최사와디 진바 숨당 아니 광도 쇠바기 령아기 아니每个我就帮你帮定或者帮定去出正堂진다 추름 세세제 저바 최사와 세제 저바 숨타는 아시와 동아 단련 여지를 치면이 버치네 저랑은 성그 저바 담비 취기 남보 체더라 아니 강 마크신 된데 왜 남 대다라 마크신 아니 남제 남보 체라 강 마크신 리듬 나람띠 세가 마그 리듬 나람띠 세가라 아니 랑기 리동와 텐정함 아니 텐조 남조라 소에가라 남독자 텐들라 초롱데라 텐조 남조란 조위 남야마 조와티 제수 텐조 현남 조와 나신 조와 따르 어테벨라 샤니 나게 람다비 남코와 다 조와테 스타 남코와 아니 도비 주dim기 도줘라 미키주라서와 저와 나게 람다비 남코와 조와테 아란단 제주 현남자 리워추어레 사람 리워 마사란다 장기 제수 주비 제주 현남자 리워추어레
So the next verse explains how this is so, that engaging in this kind of deviating path that deviates from the true path is such that it causes harm to oneself as well as to others. The 12th verse then says, one who does not respect the great path of the true Dharma with its manifest generosity, ethics, and tolerance follows the mistaken path of inflicting hardship on the body, just as a cow, and the gloss here is that just as a cow in a herd follows the line of cattle in front. So here, so it's referring to the practitioners of these kinds of extreme ascetic practices that do not have respect for the practice of the true path, which we've outlined above. The true path being the avoidance of the 10 non-virtuous kinds of actions, and the 3 types of misconduct, and then engaging in the 16 virtuous paths or dharmas. If you don't have respect for those, and instead just engage in this kind of extreme asceticism, then you'll turn your back on generosity, ethical conduct, and forbearance. Here, the term forbearance is specific. There's 3 types of forbearance, where one has, first of all, forbearance with respect to hardship, or patience or forbearance with respect to harm that others do to you so that you don't retaliate in response to things that others do to you, that kind of forbearance. And then the third of these is a special sort of forbearance, which is the ability to understand the nature of reality, the forbearance with respect to reality. So those three kinds of forbearance are what's called in the text here as clear or evident, clear forms of forbearance. These three things, though, generosity, ethical conduct, and patience, there's also three kinds of patience, three kinds of generosity, where you give, we mentioned those above, the gift of Dharma and so forth. And by means of the giving up the 7 kinds of misdeeds, misconduct, 7 kinds of non-virtuous actions that we've listed initially at the beginning of the discussion of the 10, that is the definition of the ethical conduct here. Then the 3 kinds of forbearance. If someone does not have respect for this great path, here the term great path you could actually translate as the highway of Dharma, because this highway of Dharma is clear and shows how things are in a clear fashion, but instead behaves in it simply practices extreme asceticism by avoiding extreme fasting, by engaging in extreme fasting and so forth, then one's just like an animal which leads other animals into a ravine by deviating from the proper path. One follows a sort of sidetrack which leads one down into the ravine. And so the analogy here is that if you imagine there's sort of a path at the top, which is the correct path, and it's a broad highway, but there's a sidetrack in which some confused animals could wander off the highway. Then an animal who goes off the highway on the sidetrack is, and if you're talking about herd animals, then the other members of the herd are liable to be drawn down in this into this ravine and lose the true path and suffer as a result of that. So here the analogy is given where someone who disrespects the true Dharma or the highway, the path of highway of true Dharma, and instead goes off on this sidetrack which leads into the wrong direction, then they're just like that kind of an animal who's lost the main path and leads other animals down into the ravine.
Oh yeah, that day. Che sum temba said Jimbata Tsujum da Saba sum temba di Kondo Shaba ge Dobi Che Jusum da Jubi Che sum de Jurubo Teta Gitan Duva Yin.
So this summarizes then that the 3 dharmas that are mentioned here of giving, ethical conduct, and patience, where they're mentioned in this verse, they actually summarize the 16 dharmas that were mentioned in the previous portion of the text that we've.
Oh yeah, that lam kor shuwa ki nyemi tela. Anita kansale mudi jan cheji lamla makushin mudi jan ane chiro mudi ba. Anna o geshi lamla makushin. Lam loban draw ani draw gomba. 乍当新了所谓拿都不去就高啊，那说屯着那么咱考完就把单儿啊，就把单儿哦，那这边啦个呢，体育竞赛了的，可以找你没赛吧？太极为新鲜度，你们都别去比如，许多有人就把出入，说的说的，他的别的他就的新鲜，别的老张，
So here then the next verse explains the consequence of engaging in this sort of path that deviates from the true path. And the next verse says, it's number 13, such a person with a body entwined by the savage snakes of negative mental states wanders for a very long time in the terrifying wilderness of cyclic existence, whose trees are limitless beings. So we've begun sort of the explanation of the analogy here. Here it presents the actual analogy of someone who has gone off, wandered off into the jungle. Here it says the analogy refers then to certain non-Buddhist practitioners who belong to non-Buddhist outsider propound forms of dharma which are outside of that of the Buddha. Then they don't have respect for the path of dharma as taught by the Buddha, and instead themselves follow and cause others to follow a false path. And the example that's given here is like a wilderness in which is filled with, or a jungle which is filled with a forest with very many trees and various forms of undergrowth and tangled vines and so forth, which is very difficult for a person to travel through. So just as in the case of an animal that's lost its way and has wandered off into this sidetrack, into a jungle like that, then the verse explains that it's similar for someone who has, for these teachers who teach this false kind of path.
Oh yeah. 코에 좋아하는 미사베 타이기위 신전도 니몬도베 취비로 신도유를 주바 주르세 다 코에 좋고바 가르레에서나 냐와라 소와게 아니 동안 미사베 타야바게 강와 지솔라다와 아 소와게 지자든 지다당 아니 타르다당 로다당 아니 따와 촌진당 안 처림다 도시 천진 세가 다다왕아 소군에 된 거지 주소를 따와라 소위 아니 따왕 안 바기 티버 송와 송와 람 담발라 안에 상로 동안다 선바단 차위 아니 저 신전 대자라 소위 님몽 주두배 대자라 소와 세가라 대자다 세단다 마르발라 소와기 님몽비 주두배 취비 아니 리 동화 쳐봐 소니 코와 시도 이름벌이 주바를 취해서 답 코와 바 진내 지도 주대 아니 코와 시도 이름벌 주바 취해 주바 힘들 주바 취해 준전 대다라 때네 다레서 대바 남기 아니 개외신이라 때네 아니 람 코살라 마송와 람 나마르 민다와 람 개외신이라 때네 달레서 대바남 타비신이라 때네 람 나마르 민다와 람 나마데 아니 가소레 초스 말로마기 민다와 민나마 민다와 예장 치조로기 람라 마시바 체질 차고 치질로기 민나마르 나마 민대와 아니 치조기 람라 아니 마셔봐대 개치버리 체질 차고.
So the example, this what is presented in this verse is the analogy, and what this indicates by means of this example is that samsara is like the jungle here, and the jungle of samsara. And in the hells and so forth, there are this jungle is filled with limitless, unbearable sufferings, such as one finds in the hells and the other realms. And so the beings that have been born in this jungle are like the trees, which are completely entwined by that have entered into this thick sort of jungle, and they're in the darkness of the wrong views, such as evil sorts of views, such as the wrong view of the perishable aggregates, the view which holds the aggregates as being as if they possessed an intrinsically existent self, and the other forms of wrong views, the wrong view that holds that faulty kinds of religious observance are actually the best, the wrong view which holds to extremes as if they were the actual reality, and the other forms of wrong view. All of these wrong views, the person has fallen into the deep sort of thicket of those wrong views. And so the person who is born in that kind of state is analogous to a tree that has been born in the jungle, and they're separated from the true path. And similarly, they're completely enveloped in and wrapped up by sort of entwined, have the poisonous snakes of the mental afflictions of desire and so forth. Here, the desire and so forth indicates desire, hatred, ignorance, and the other mental afflictions. All of those mental afflictions are like poisonous snakes, which are entwined around the person. So a person who is born into that kind of state is compelled to be born in that, in samsara, for an extremely long period of time. It's not just a single life that this goes on for, but for life after life in a continuity for an extremely long period of time. And so since all of this is the case, when one comes to understand that that is the way this is, then if someone desires to have happiness for themselves, they desire themselves to have well-being, then it's essential that in dependence upon the instruction of a noble sort of friend, like a spiritual master or virtuous friend who explains the path correctly, that they should make a great deal of effort towards not being attracted to these incorrect kinds of paths that are taught by non-outsider type teachers. These outsider paths, they're said to be dharma, but and they claim that these are the genuine path. These practices are the genuine path, but in reality they're false, and so therefore one who wishes well-being for oneself should make great effort to avoid these at all costs.
Oh yeah, that did it. That did it. lam kwa shu wi nyemi de ma chen chan ni da che ta da la lo ba shu wi ise lo ba shu wi je bu te la mi ge lo ba shu wa mi ge chu ki je bu te la ani ya ge mi ge wa chu sha ba yin za ka lan do ba ki mi ge wa chu yi je bu te la ani da na min ji de wu da gyun din ji je bu ani da bi je bu ju chi bi je bu ste de yo wa yin za dan de ge 균디지 대우딩 하나 송거야 그래. 좋아. 남미지 대우디 아니 서바기 안남미게 대우디 채치만라 아니 남미지 대우디 남미지 대우디뇨. 아니 대잠지 다 돼줘. 균디지 대우디는 아니 제와네 제와 봐도 아니 소절라 가와 인장. 아니 소절게 남미게 대우디 기미제 봐 영화요 인자 뜻 잡치고야 이 말이. 인장에 균디 대우 수야 되라 미게위 균디지 대우 가르레서나 다수 소 미게와 주인하니 소제비 대우 미게위의 대우데 소제바이 체동중现在세와 체와 그랑을 내봐 마마 아니 마시벌 내바기 남미 균디지 대우라 롱제지 펑바 지부 체배 자단체 세가나 미산주지 로연 체베 안에 다다 제바 다디 들어와 동에 dimao 들어와도 로글로그 채널 와 이제 서바연이 최종 주루스니 서바연이 개와 현라 안에 최대라 소재 제위 안에 윤리지대 우제 개와 현라 최통화 주와 그와 최통화 주와 최통화 주와 최라서베 현라 남바 체베 치밀리라 내가 마와 다시 채와 그 치밀을 내가 마와 대체 꾸어이니 롱제 퐁신 아니 미담바당 현다 팀 롱제 현다 팀와 좋아 지워 제배 주말라 랑게 라왕 참매바 그 다단 제바 랑게 주말라 라왕 참마바 그 다단 제바 어 대수무체
So then next comes an explanation of how it is that if the results of engaging in these 10 different forms of non-virtuous action, that is, that if you do not perform virtue, but instead engage in non-virtue, what will the results of that be? An explanation of that. And with respect to the results of actions, there are different types of results. There are results which it's called the result which accords with the cause. That is, the result is concordant with the action itself that produce the effect or the result. And then there's the it's called the result, which is the maturation of the action. That is the action, the karma that one creates produces a full maturation of a life of, if it's non-virtuous action, then it produces a life of suffering and so forth. So these are all explained in what follows. And the 14th verse begins this discussion where it says, due to murder, one is born with a short lifespan. Due to violence, one encounters much torment. Due to stealing, one becomes impoverished. And due to adultery, one has enemies. These are explained in the commentary here that it says by killing, in other lives, the result of this, which accords with the cause, is that one's own lifespan will be shortened. That is, so similar to killing others, shortening their lives, your own life will become shorter in a subsequent lifetime, and that's the result which accords, which is similar to the cause. And so there, for example, you can, in addition to that, by killing others with weapons and so forth, then by harming others with other beings with weapons and so forth, then in a future life, your own body will be afflicted with various kinds of pain and harm itself. And then through theft, stealing others' property, the result will be the result that accords with the cause, the action itself, would be that you will become bereft of wealth. You'll be impoverished yourself, and likewise that if you were to get some wealth, some kind of wealth or necessities of life, those wouldn't be stable. They'd be such that they disappear easily. And then, or if you have some property and you wouldn't be able to maintain it yourself, but rather it would be taken over by others.
Oh, yeah.
I'm sorry. Then there's the last one is with respect to adultery. By engaging in adultery, the effect of that, which is similar to the cause, would be that that one's own, in a subsequent lifetime, one's own spouse would be such that he or she would not be someone that would cooperate with one, but rather would be someone who functions as an enemy to yourself.
Oh yeah, that 준도 마와 ki 아니 균등게 되어라 아니 군대 마보요아니 준도 매가 꾸와때 세가라 샹라 준도 마와 그 균등게 되어라 아라라 연대 예발라 연대 매바다와라 소와 그 군대 마와 아니 참아이니 세당 제세 참아기 아니 랑게 자세당 아니 이와 제바 아니 치주 보니 저 민년 버텨와 치주 마위기 군대들라 아니 랑라 저 민년 버텨와 나자 중자도 마와기 아니 가서 되라 중자도 마기 되라 만들위 아니 랑게 치 미친 바당 아니 현재 랑게 치라 참말 미송아 송아 메와라 소와기다 나한테 중국어 안 바래
신기츠글 쩨마 신기츠글 쩨마 중앙
치 참말 미송아 랑게 치다라 현재 참말 미송아 이제 미셔봐
So then the next verse explains the consequences, results that come from the verbal sorts of misconduct, verbal non-virtuous actions. So that's 15. By telling lies, one becomes reviled. Through speaking divisively, one loses friends. Due to speaking harshly, one hears unpleasant noises or sounds. From engaging in gossip, one's words will be disregarded. And then the commentary here explains that out of lying, by lying, then in subsequent lives, when others will disparage you, will say things, bad things about you. And then by gossip, by engaging in gossip in the present life and doing things, malicious gossip, then in your subsequent life, your own friends and relatives and so forth will be divided against you, separated from you, and opposed to you. And from harsh words, you'll hear unpleasant sorts of noises and sounds in a subsequent life. And then idle gossip or idle speech, that results in sort of irrelevant sort of idle talk. That results in one's own words not being respected by others. That is, in a future life, when you say something, other people won't give it any credence or value it in any way. Or it will also induce cases where you'll be someone who has sort of unwarranted confidence in speaking about things that are actually not reliable or trustworthy, so that your words will be unreliable.
Oh yeah, that quite so. See, 참말 송 미와 망의 보아전의 주가 세치체. 다들이 얘기 남섬 로다기 나라. 나섬 일라라와 좀 세그라 현지 노라 차바기. 나섬지 대장 오버티 아니 랑기 일라라와도 봐 점심 믿어봐. 아니 내섬기 아니 가서래 집을 짐바 아니 집바 짐바 랑라시 집바 짐바 돌아셔도 세래 믿으비 아니 집바 짐바 돌아셔 로바다와기 아니 로바다에 치마라 따왕 바당 아니 요즘 마와주 줘봐.
Then the next verse explains the result of the result, which is similar to the cause here of the mental sorts of negative actions, and that's in 16. Covetousness destroys one's desired objects. Maliciousness is said to bestow fear. Wrong views lead to evil worldviews, is the way this is translated here. So, like here it says, covetousness causes one's desired things to be destroyed, or it can also result in one's own wishes not being accomplished and being overcome. that you won't get what you want in your future lives because of, as a result of the covetousness that one has in the present life. Then maliciousness, malice, it's explained in the sutras that out of malice, a malicious kind of attitude in the present life, in your future life, you'll have be very fearful, in a state of fear all the time. And then out of a wrong view, false views, in the future lives, you'll be a person who is subject to wrong views again. You'll be immersed in these kinds of wrong views. Or it's also the case that one would be very deceitful or on the other hand, deceived as well in one's subsequent lives. These sorts of things will occur as well.
Oh yeah. 다들이 영화 균형이 되고 되라. 아니 영화 균형이다. 제발 균형이 전에 이세 와래. 와 라망아마 남기 영화 균형이다. 제발 균형이 예수 전에. 난 영화 균형이라 가진데 소제비 영화 균형이라 최송아. 아니 어디 다시 얘기해서 송아 최통아. 다들 최통화된 아마체. 다 제발 균형이라 아니 소제라 가와. 다시 시와 나세 소제바라 가와. 체디 소제바라 가와 이다 안 소제길래 아니 만보 제대로 가라 깨와 치마야 아니야 채통아 좋아 아니 깨와 치마야 안에서 양지 제발 주디 되는 거 이상 선대 마와서 치마 채서 근데 다 남이 이제 가서 윤리지로 제 나비저우데 치료가 요라면 봐
So then, with respect to the results that arise from, we're talking about non-virtuous actions here, we can analyze them, these results, in different ways or understand them in different ways. Earlier gurus have explained that in terms of the result which accords with the cause, there are two types of this. One is experience, and the other is one's sort of habits or activities. The first of these, we've already touched on these points, but to explain them in a little more detail, that the result which accords with the cause in terms of experience, if we take for an example, if you engage in killing in the present life, your experience in the subsequent life will be having a short lifespan. So there, your experience is similar to the cause which gave rise to it, that is the action of killing itself. And then in terms of the behavior, which is similar to the cause, an example there would be by sort of habitually engaging in killing in the present life, one sets up a causal condition for having this same kind of desire to kill in one's subsequent lifetime. So you're reborn again, say, as a human or whatever, but as a result of your habituation to killing in a previous life, your behavior is patterned in the same way in this subsequent life, so that you have a strong sort of impulse or desire to engage in killing in that later life as well. And then finally, there's another aspect of the result, which is called the governing result governing result of an action. These governing results manifest themselves in the environment, so that they appear so that the environment that a person is born in is itself an outflow from the karma that one created in one's previous life, that the karma that was the cause for that lifetime. Not only internally, your experience, your habits and so forth are conditioned by these actions that you performed in the past, but even the external environment manifests as a result of the actions that you performed in your previous lives. This is explained more extensively in the stages of the path sorts of texts, such as the Great Stages of the Path by J. Rinpoche and so forth. And so those should be understood from that, that source.
Oh yeah, that didn't that all be chosen Ginane, and a chant to water. Lobachawata, number Chawata, that to my Tunguwa is down. Chandu one it Lord to the Jimba Mata or one ye, square Jimbas, or the Nancy, chant to walk and it can do Devula, Shivarashi the mother, Lord Trua, Shivarashi to me never Juate. And you cure Jimba Mata with Devula cure Michi, and it Jimba Miton water. Majimba lebe uwa nyi sadadi jimba mata we tewu tamba yenje majile ji tewu tamba mamba konto shesba yin so ta.
So then the three sorts of misdeeds, sorts of misconduct that were enumerated above, as far as the results that come from them, it says here. This is the last line actually in verse 16. Imbibing liquor brings mental confusion. Through not giving gifts, one gets poverty. Wrong livelihood, those two are explained first. So by drinking alcohol, one's mind becomes confused. And that what that means is that one's awareness doesn't remain in a natural state. It's confused by the alcohol. By not giving gifts respectfully, doing it in the proper fashion, or by not giving gifts at all, by not engaging in generosity in any way whatsoever, or as well, by taking that which is not given to you, theft and so forth, one has, as a result of that, poverty in a future life. So this here shows the result, in the verse here specifies the result of not giving gifts, not engaging in generosity, results in poverty, but one can apply that also to as a result of stealing, taking that which is not given to you. Stealing has the same kind of outflow or result that one is impoverished.
Oh yeah, that didn't choa. C'est ta juste un ancien séné, chanda, loba choa, c'est dit. Loba choa, luwa de, c'est gala, loto chewa la tene, rani senji, ane luwa toba juba. Kimba yeni ringani, c'est gala, ngarjaki, ane ringan ba jawada. Chado ki senji pisum choa la, sem kone trubi, chado ki ni, ane rangi siji chunga juba. 아니 초에 세로 콘도긴지 콘도게 아니 미두발라 소와기 아도 카동아바니 타와주와 니니 초에 랑도진네 셰와세 뉘뉘게 나게 초와티기 아니 랑도진네 시위 케와남라 마트바니자 아니 케와남라 마트바인자 라니 랑도긴네라 몽바기 림보니 타버려 주대 랑도진네 미시비 아 몽바니도 주와.
So then the verses continue there that saying after going through the faults, the bad consequences of drinking liquor, not giving gifts, then it says wrong livelihood results in being deceived or getting tricked. Arrogance leads to a lowly station. Jealousy brings about a homeliness or ugliness. From anger comes a bad complexion. And stupidity, since one will not question the wise. So the commentary here explains more detail on that. That out of engaging in wrong forms of livelihood, means of livelihood, oneself becomes deceived in subsequent lives as a result, which accords with the cause there. Out of arrogance, one is born into this arrogance, meaning thinking of oneself as being of a high state. One is born into a low or bad kind of family. And then by jealousy and envy towards having one's mind completely overcome by and disturbed by attachment to the wealth of others, that sort of covetousness and jealous and envy, then it causes one's sort of, what does it say here? I'm sorry. Wrong livelihood, arrogance. Jealousy brings about homeliness. Yeah, okay. I would translate that more as like a lack of vitality or some kind of bad appearance. Homeliness is all right. Then anger in the present life, that results in future lives as having a bad complexion, bad appearance in that sense, as well as that's one of the results of it. And then anger also can result in one not becoming acquainted with masters that understand and are able to explain the topics of dharma in terms of what it is that one should practice and what one should avoid. And because of anger producing that sort of condition in the future, then you will become you'll be stupid and confused in your subsequent life by being separated from masters that are intelligent and wise people that are able to explain what is to be taken up and avoided. So and as a final result of that, you become a sort of foolish or stupid person that doesn't understand how it is that one should avoid negative conduct and take up positive kinds of behavior.
That's right.
Yes.
Oh yeah, that day, 가서를 균등그 대부대 당 침부채. 단 남이지 대부 가상아마 시와 나시 전에 아니 미개와 침보나 믿어오 이나 남이지 대부대 미개와 아니 침보채와 그 남이지 대부라 냐와 아니 등을라 텐도 아니 가서래 충우라 이다 다 텐도다 이다냐보다 양 잠미다 소야 와래 어디 소이다 미니 대부 미니라니 대부대 군지 탐봉 안도로 세가나 오다 군지 탐봉 미니라니 군지 탐봉 안도로 시 안도로 마인데 세가소래 군지 탐봉 안도로 미개वे라니 군지 탐봉 밀라나니 남인지 대부 냐와상 아니 등라 텐저당 충을라 이다지 뒤에 안도로 도대사 주와와래 첨배냐와당 등기 텐저당 충의 이다도 민바 샤바니 텐저래 이다 샤와 사와 인장 아니 되게 되래 딜라 로두 샤바티 텐저라 이다 샤와 사와 인장 아니 탓라와라 공바셰 제도
So here, then this leads into the next topic, which is thus far we've described the results which accord with the cause. So out of non-virtuous actions then that we engage in, we'll experience those kinds of results, even if we're to be born as a human being or so forth. But one might wonder then, well, is it the case then that these sorts of non-virtuous actions result in merely those kinds of results, results which are accord with the cause? And then if you present that kind of question, then the answer is no, that's not the case at all. And so it says that these kinds of results occur even in the human realm, a short life and so forth. So even in the human realm, but there also have results being occurring within the bad or forms of existence, the evil destinies, and so it says. Which verse are we on now? 7:18. Okay. The second half of verse 18 says, "These are the effects when one is reborn as a human, but prior to all of them, there is bad rebirth." So what that is referring to is that even in the human realm, once one has been reborn as a human, one would have to undergo those kinds of effects as a result of those non-virtuous actions. But even before that, one would have to experience the result, which is the full maturation of the karma, and that occurs in the lower realms of existence, or the evil destinies of being born in hell as a animal, or as a hungry ghost or preta. Here it says there that at the very these kinds of non-virtuous actions, all of them produce those sorts of results, even in the human realm. But in terms of their full maturation result, there's hell, there's the animal realm, and then there's the hungry ghost or preta sort of life. And these three together make up the evil destinies or lower realms of existence. Now, there's various discussion in terms of how you list the three lower realms of existence: hell, hungry ghost, and animal. Here it's listed as hell, animal, and hungry ghost. The reason for that is that, and the source for this is that in the sutra on the 10 levels of the Bodhisattva path, it says that the heaviest result of non-virtuous action is birth in hell. Intermediate kind of result of non-virtuous action is birth as an animal. And the lesser kind of result, maturation result of a non-virtuous action is rebirth as a hungry ghost or preta. Now, the reason for that, it's given in that way, is that compared to animals, hungry ghosts or pretas actually have a clear kind of intellect. Their intellect has more clarity. And so from that point of view, it's actually easier, or it's said that it's the intention here is that it's easier to enter into the path of liberation from the state of being a hungry ghost or preta than it is from the animal state.
Oh, Teta, Kondo Shabaki, Anadobi Chirubote, Tetaki, Kalan Dojaki, Animiki Judan, La Sowaki, Da Mikachu La. 아니 가서래 도자 선보 텔라도비 최주 선보 대기 아니 대부텔라 아니 남미지 대부 균대지 대부 아니 답이 대부 어다 기당 지고 집에 대부 시와래 어텐데 아니 대부대다 삼니 아니 대부 동아대다 미대바 아니 랑 미대바인 바라 아니 대우대다 중재의 주도고와 인장 다 동아대다 나서 삼니 랑지 찌개와 되네 치패대 다 개회련이 마주 미개회련이 아니 토마메바나 사와다 체디 사와 만도 잡아 예 니네 치패대 아니 치디 잠밤 미개회련에 써야 되대 아니 난디 깨네 디단데 깨나 아니 동아대단테 영화의 냠되니 아니 동화라 잡으셨어 동화라 지시 잡아당 아니 텔레주비니 먹고줘라 여바지 이시게다 아니 테마사 아니 동화사비 그와텔라 진주라 소마나 신세의 신 동화原点니 교회 trực把 세와체 아니 교회 trực把 세와 동화라 교회게 랑경 아자 세와체 바다 아니 랑 동화지 나와 태나시 삼제신 동화지 나서 삼내야 아니 인제제다 교회에 코바다 인제제시 아니 동화대 그 아니 미개와라 때나 중화 인장 저 동화 메데나 아니 주 미개와 디바텔라 젬바라 딜라 젬신 아니 그와 뽕와라 까봐 어디서 연구하나 두세와 연구 인장 다 간데스 다르래서 다시 공도 롱된 시와나 신체니 미기 대디 남지 사베니 링아 유지 예제 추진이 진의 태도자면 미제바 대단지 자기 배바 저세고 다 배서 치야지 아니 미기 주뽕기 미기 주빵디 아니 그와 지람라 아니 저바 치야지 다도 심말
So then the point of all of this that we've gone over thus far is that here, by thinking about non-virtue and the way in which it serves to give rise to the various kinds of effects that it produces, the different kinds of results. So any kind of non-virtuous action that you engage in will produce various forms of results, such as the result that is similar to the action itself, the result which is the actual full manifestation of the action, of the result of the action, which is the rebirth in one of the lower states of existence, hell, hungry ghost, animal, or the result which is involved with the kind of environment that one is born into, the kind of experiences one will have, the sorts of habits that one will continue to have in subsequent lives. Thinking about and contemplating this relationship between non-virtue and suffering is extremely valuable, because it's only by doing this, understanding the causal relationship between non-virtue and its results, suffering, and by considering all of the different forms of suffering that arise out of non-virtue, that one is able to develop a kind of revulsion towards non-virtue. That is, it's only by recognizing, understanding the suffering that comes out of non-virtue and seeing that it arises from that cause, that one will develop the actual revulsion towards the non-virtue itself, as well as develop the wish to avoid engaging in those kinds of non-virtuous actions. And all of that, this kind of developing this kind of understanding, thinking about it, is the basis for developing renunciation as such. There's no way to do that without it. Oh, yeah. And then likewise, as far as developing compassion for other beings, without, first of all, recognizing suffering as it exists within yourself and the causality that caused it to arise from the non-virtue that you created previously, then there's no way to develop love and compassion for others by understanding their suffering, seeing how it comes from the non-virtue that they've created previously. And thus, there's no way to develop compassion as well. So it's said in multiple sources, such as the introduction to the Bodhisattva's way of life and other texts as well, throughout the scriptures, that contemplation of suffering and the relationship that it has with non-virtue is the basis for developing all of the other kinds of virtues. We talked about this previously where we spoke of the different kinds of results that arise from actions, so that a single action can produce a vast result, that it has a specific kind of results and so forth. All of this kind of contemplation of this, the causal relationship between non-virtue and suffering is designed to enable us to develop this kind of understanding and revulsion towards non-virtue, a renunciation coming out of that, as well as developing compassion and love for others by recognizing their suffering and the causes that gave rise to it.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Stop there.
Ni